Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky, Max Christie again looks good at Summer League. How confident are you he could play a big part in this year's rotation? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. It's always free. It's never behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube, which I think is getting near 20,000 subscribers. But Andy thinks I was getting a little ahead of myself. We are up above 19,000. I feel like we are pushing to 20, Andy, and people are going to help us get there. But you know, Andy's always been more of a journalist than I am. He's into accuracy.
No, I can just count.
Yeah,
and read.
Yeah, math, reading, all of that stuff. But we appreciate all the support the channel is getting. Thank you to everybody who are leaving comments and questions. They are really helping us drive topics, and we'll continue to, shout us out specifically. Hey, answer this question, and we will try to work all that into the show. Plenty to talk about. Mo Bamba going to Philadelphia. We're going to get into Max Christie in the Summer League and his performance on Wednesday night, which was really good, and a surprisingly quiet, drama-free summer, despite the fact, Andy, there's plenty of drama going around the league. So let's start with Mo, just because this is most relevant to the roster and the construction of it right now. Bamba signs with Philadelphia. It's going to back up Joel Embiid instead of Anthony Davis. 1-year deal. I did not see anything about options. I just saw a 1-year deal.
I am assuming it's veterans minimum, but I don't know. I don't actually know if it is one way or the other. I can't imagine it's. I'd be surprised if it was more.
I'm double checking. I don't think.
I'd be surprised if it was. Yeah, I would be surprised if it's more than a taxpayer mid-level, just because Bamba is coming off a few years of inconsistency and got hurt once he was with the Lakers. My guess, though, is veterans minimum. We will obviously confirm that once more solid information comes out.
So the issue here is that we're running out of dudes. I mean, if you listen to the show earlier in the week, Andy and I went through a lot of names. And I think for most people, Mo Bamba was a top 3 guy, top 4 guy, certainly in everybody's top 5 of people like that were remaining on the market that were semi-realistic to talk about. Bamba was right up there with that group. And he is gone. And the question I have isn't so much Bamba specific, although I would have been perfectly fine, as we talked about in the show, with him being the guy they brought back. At what point do you get a little concerned? How many more dudes, which dudes for you, Andy, would have to jump off the board to be like, okay, I'm a little worried here?
If Bismack Biyombo and Dario Saric both got scooped up, that would be a bit concerning. Because I think they're 2 of the best guys still out there that seem like they're veterans minimum candidates. And also because you start running out of guys that you just would feel reasonably confident. We went through our list, and once you take those guys and now Bamba off the board, unless Christian Wood is, I guess, available and a veterans minimum guy, because, I think there is a very open question of how much that guy will get on the open market. There may be a question of just
clearly not as much as he wants.
Right. There also may be that question of Dallas. They're making a lot of moves right now. They traded for Grant Williams. They put out an offer sheet for Matisse Thybulle. So they may be working out some of their own finances before just figuring out what happens with Christian Wood. But assuming he's available even for a veterans minimum, those 3 guys, if they get taken off the board, probably you and I agreed the next best player would be Willy Hernan Gomez, which fine, but you start start immediately dropping off in terms of guys with any type of proven track record, regardless of how good you actually think they are, just guys that you know who they are.
Right. It's not what I'm looking for here. It's really two things that I'm looking for here. And I think the everydayer certainly would understand kind of the perspective here. First thing I want is a contrast to Jackson Hayes. Jackson Hayes is all upside. But the floor for, again, we're not talking about a development team here. The Lakers are a team that expects and wants to win a lot of games in the regular season, secure a good seed, and go deep in the playoffs. And Jackson Hayes has a pretty high ceiling, I think. That's the hope. But he's also got a really low floor. And what I think the Lakers need is a player with a higher floor. So that's the first thing. The second thing I think they should be looking for is a player with a specific skill, something that is predictable, something that they know they can use, whatever. That gets to the high floor thing. Those two things are related. And I think the guys that you mentioned, Andy, particularly Saric and Biyombo, and I guess Wood too. I mean, you know what he's going to bring you, both good and bad. If they don't, it is a legitimate problem if the Lakers go into the season with a big hole behind Anthony Davis, or potential hole.
Yeah, I mean, it just puts, we talked about this when they signed Jackson Hayes, like the difference between him and the upside flyer they're taking on Cam Reddish is you hope it works out with Reddish, but it's not even a given that guy's going to be in the rotation. Like he is going to have to beat out some guys, including, we're going to talk about Max Christie once the training camp begins. Jackson Hayes has a role that if he can't fulfill, I'm not sure who does it other than LeBron, Rui going small, or, we'll talk about him later too.
Colin Castleton.
I was going to say, maybe they feel really good about what they've seen from Colin Castleton, and his game 2 is even better than his game 1.
There's one glaring problem with it, but if they do, we'll see if they convert him to a regular contract from the two-way at some point.
Right, but that would be
a long way away.
It's a long way away, and that also would be, even if you feel great about everything he does between game 2 and however long the Lakers go in the California Classic,
no, it's over. That's it.
I'm just saying, it's still a risk they are taking to put all of that on an undrafted rookie.
It is a challenge, I think, and to say you're being intellectually consistent when you say to say that you are worried about the potential low floor of Jackson Hayes, but totally optimistic that Castleton's going to.
Or even somebody like we had talked about before, Tristan Thompson. Like he has played, because we've seen a lot on the Locked On Lakers YouTube channel comment section. There's been a fair amount of enthusiasm for Thompson, and I understand it because he is a known, recognizable commodity. And the last vision fans had of Thompson was surprisingly playing quite well in that game 4 against Denver. But really have to emphasize this: the last 2 years, Thompson has not played a lot of NBA basketball, and there could very well be a reason. He would be a great 15th guy in the locker room, and I get why the Lakers wanted him on the roster for the playoffs. Totally makes sense, but wouldn't feel great about him with an earmarked role.
Okay, so we're going to get to Summer League. As I mentioned earlier, Max Christie, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Colin Castleton, Cole Swider, all worth talking about for sure. And we're going to get there. But I do have one more name that I want to throw out there in this center conversation, because it's going to come up if trends look the way, like sort of the way the news is starting to shape. If it breaks this way, here, another name that fans will recognize will be on the market. We'll talk about it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by BetterHelp, and it's easy to get caught up in what everyone needs from you and not taking that moment to think about what you need for yourself. And it's hard to balance your significant other, your children, extended family, work, but again, remembering to be there for yourself. And when you spend all your time giving, it can feel like you're stretched thin and burned out. And life, unfortunately, does not come with a user manual. And when it's not working, it's really normal to feel stuck. And I can personally speak to how much therapy helped me during a really difficult period of my life for me and my family, and sitting down and talking with someone was huge. BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient, accessible anywhere, 100% online, no waiting rooms, no traffic. Plus, it is affordable. So just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. And if things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. So if you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. So visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to receive a 10% discount off your first month. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
Andy, in the first segment, you mentioned Dallas again making moves. The Mavericks have been very busy and I think sneaky effective in this offseason in terms of kind of putting a better team around Kyrie and Luka than they had at the end of last year, and certainly a better team than people expected them to be able to do given their limited resources following the Kyrie trade. But with all of these moves, there is an expectation or certainly a strong possibility that the Mavericks could waive JaVale McGee. If that were to happen, he would immediately be linked back to the Lakers, especially if they haven't filled this 14th spot yet, haven't gotten that other center yet. How would you feel about it? We've made the jokes about Dwight and how terrible an idea that is, Dwight Howard. Like, that is not a thing, people. He's 37 years old. He was really bad in his last stint in LA. He's only gotten older since then. It is a terrible idea to have Dwight as your primary backup there, or even your break glass backup. What about JaVale?
Look, there's a part of me that wants this to happen because we covered JaVale for a couple of years when he was with the Lakers, and I really like him personally. And I really love the career arc that his time in the NBA has taken, because it's pretty amazing that he's managed to go from this guy that was considered poster boy for the knuckleheads in the NBA to somebody that has been part of a lot of winning. And he actually was a really good mentor to the young guys on the Lakers when he was with the team. You know, certainly brought out a lot of confidence in Alex Caruso as an example. But his first season in Dallas was rough. It was really rough. He averaged less than 10 minutes a game. And this is somebody that the Mavericks earmarked for a big role. They gave him a 3-year contract, and he's being coached by Jason Kidd, who had that relationship with him when he was with the Lakers as an assistant. This is not something that, like, Jason Kidd went into kicking and screaming. This is something I think, by all accounts, and talking a little bit with people around the team, something Jason Kidd wanted, and immediately McGee fell out of favor with him. Talking with someone who covers the team, the observation was JaVale started looking old.
He's 35.
He's going to be 36 during this upcoming season. JaVale is a guy that, if he loses speed and he loses athleticism, because JaVale McGee is a sick athlete. Like, he's a different kind of athlete, but he is a sick athlete. If JaVale loses athleticism and spring and stuff like that, he starts becoming a much less useful player.
I mean, on the one hand, you know what you're getting in terms of the guy playing the role that you want, and you know what kind of character player you have in the locker room and all those other things. He was pretty effective 2 years ago with Phoenix. Like, not a world beater, but he would fulfill exactly the role that you would think you know what you're going to get. Could rely on him for the 25 games that Anthony Davis wasn't going to play, and certainly could work with AD, knows how to do it for the games they're playing together. But man alive, like, if the end has come, and it comes for everybody, it's that's probably like same. That's why you don't put your eggs in Tristan Thompson's basket, because if you need to know. And so, I mean, I would kick the tires on that. And I think Dallas is going to try to trade him first. I mean, I think they're working hard to do that.
But a lot of money to eat.
if he ends up on the open market, I think they would look hard. And I wouldn't blame them relative to who's available. The Lakers lose their second and final California Classic game. There will be no repeat title to the Spurs on Wednesday. The score doesn't matter. It was 109-99 if you're really interested. What matters?
I didn't realize that the Classic was done now. Like, is that it?
That's what I was trying to tell you before. Like, they are done with the Classic. It's on to Vegas. Short tournament, California Classic. I'm not even sure how you determine a winner in something like that.
Insignificant. Their previous titles.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all fleeting, Andy. What matters is who plays well and how they play and what context and all that. And Max Christie, who looked good on Monday, looked good again on Wednesday. Really excellent game from Christie. 25 points on 7 of 13 shooting, including 4 or 5 from three-point range. He got to the line 8 times. He had 4 rebounds. He had 4 assists. He had a steal. He had a block. And he was the Lakers' best player by a fair margin.
Him or Castleton. We'll get into Castleton. I also like that Christie had no turnovers because he is somebody
handling the ball a lot.
Yeah, someone handling the ball a lot. I'll reiterate what I said after the game 1 recap when Christie also played really well. If he has another game, maybe 2 like this, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers shut him down as a second-year guy. And frankly, I kind of hope they do, because you will have seen enough from him to, if nothing else, know he has progressed in the way that you hope somebody in their second year does in the summer league, which is look like one of the best players on the floor by a pretty wide margin. And also, too, I think it would give guys like Jalen Hood-Schifino and Maxwell Lewis and Colin Castleton and Cole Swider just larger roles and give them more of an opportunity to show what they can or even can't do. So it's been really great progress for Christie. And he is somebody that we both have reiterated a lot over the course of last season. Internally, they're very high on him.
Absolutely.
And what we've been seeing so far in the summer league shows exactly why.
It's, you want guys who have been in the league to look like they are better than the rookies. And he certainly has. You want to see year-to-year progress, which he's certainly made. But the other thing that I think is really kind of critical here to talk about, Max Christie is still closer to being 20 than he is 21. He didn't turn 20 until February. So he's still younger. He has a year of NBA experience under his belt, but he's still younger than a lot of guys in the summer league. I do not know the exact percentage, but a lot of them. He is younger than me. He's basically the same age as Hood-Schifino. I mean, so Max Christie is still a very young second-year player. And for him to show the kind of progress that he has, I think it's just, it's got to make the Lakers feel really good. The question I want to ask you, though, Andy, is how much more of it you feel like you would need to see before you would be like, okay, I'm pretty confident he could be in the rotation. So that's the question I want to ask next. You talked, Andy, about shutting him down, after a few more, maybe he plays a couple games in Vegas and looks good and all that. But how much of Christie looking like he did on Wednesday and, Monday into Wednesday, it obviously doesn't mean he's arrived, but like, how much of that do you need to see before you feel like, okay, I feel like this is a 15-minute a night guy the Lakers can pencil in here? Is it summer league preseason? What do you think?
It's preseason. I mean, at this point, if he plays like another really good summer league game, I've seen enough to know he's progressing the way he should, and that it feels like things are on the right track. To know whether or not he should be in the rotation, I need to see him against full NBA rosters. That being said, I am confident that he is progressing in a direction that will put him in the rotation, because I liked what we saw from him last year. And he stopped playing basically after January for all intents and purposes. And I understand why Darvin took him out of the rotation, particularly once they revamped the roster and they were clearly going to lean on the guys with more experience and that they just brought in. But we talked about this. I was not upset that Darvin took him out of the rotation. I also wouldn't have minded if Darvin kept him in the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had enough confidence that if he wanted to keep playing Max Christie 12 minutes a night, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. Like, I had no issue with him being there, even though I had no issue with him going out. But because of that, I feel like he's moving in the direction of a rotation player regardless.
What about Castleton? I mean, we'll get to Hood-Schifino here in a second, but the other guy who, at least right now, because we were making the joke in the last segment about him having an avenue to playing time. He is clearly a guy who understands basketball, and like, he's got a good skill set. What was he tonight on Wednesday night?
He had 18 points.
Yeah.
18 points, 6 of 10 shooting, 6 of 7 at the line, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 blocks. I would say it is extremely premature to say that because of these 2 games, the Lakers have decided he could handle a backup role. But it would not surprise me if after these 2 games, they are thinking about what to look for to determine if he could. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, he's on a 2-way deal. He's going to have, they're going to have a certain amount of access to him. But if nothing else, I just think it's nice to see them finding these guys. He's same agent. It's not surprising. He is a little bit older, so you would expect him to play a little bit better. And so, that's something I think we mentioned for Wednesday's show. But he's got a little bit of that sort of front court Reeves kind of feel to him, where he just makes good plays. He puts the ball in the right spot. He, does the technically correct thing. And, aside from the 13 fouls in 2 games, you can see why they wanted to bring him in and quickly got him that 2-way deal.
Let me put it this way. And granted, this is a small sample size, and I'm acknowledging this. Over the last year or so, we would hear from fans a lot wanting to see Jay Huff get time with the big club. I've liked what we've seen more from Castleton than we saw from Huff.
Right. It's more versatile play without the 3-point shooting.
Yep.
Hood-Schifino missed a lot of perimeter shots again on Wednesday, missed all 4 of his 3-pointers, but was 8 of 13 from inside the arc, finished with 20 points, 4 assists, a steal, 3 rebounds, made it to the line 7 times. I thought a much better second game for Hood-Schifino than his first.
Yeah, it should also be pointed out he had 5 turnovers, but that's going to happen with a young guard handling the ball a lot. My hope after that first game was his inefficiency was nerves, because it looked to me like he wasn't even sped up. It felt to me like he was playing under control, getting to the spots that he wanted, getting the shots that he wanted. They just weren't falling.
Mm-hmm.
In this game, they fell more. But I'll tell you, it's the second game in a row. You can see that dude knows he has a strong frame, and he knows how to use it. He's a physical player. Very
aggressive getting into the paint, very aggressive around the basket, finished pretty well. That was a question, how well can he finish? That was something in college that was, a bit, if you want to use red flag, for a guy who was drafted 17th, that was one of the perceived potential weaknesses. But, he to carve out a role this year, he's going to have to hit outside shots, assuming guys don't get hurt and like he's just put in a role. But to earn a role, he's going to need to shoot the ball better from the perimeter. But it is nice to see a guy. I actually thought one of my favorite plays of the game for him came in the first half off a little pick and roll with Castleton, and Castleton's rolling the basket and he throws the ball back out to the wing to, I forget whom, it doesn't matter, who drove for a bucket for the Lakers. It was one of the guys who wasn't going to make the team. Like plays like that where he's really under control, moving the ball in the pick and roll. Thought he looked really good. So optimism there, I thought, from him. And then the last guy that I think is kind of fun to watch is Swider, because he has a great many deficiencies as an NBA player and one really obvious skill set, which is perimeter shooting. and it was on display on Wednesday. 4 of 7, I believe he finished from 3-point range. And 7 of his 10 shots were 3-pointers, probably all 10 of them in the future should be if he's going to take 10. But he knows what he's there to do, which is shoot the ball and shoot it quickly. What do you think? Like, is there I'm not talking a star, but is there like a potential actual NBA player in there, a sort of Duncan Robinson light, whatever you want to call it?
I would need to see a little bit. It'd be nice if he had 1.5 skills. And look, he had 7 rebounds in this game. You're seeing him take the ball to the hole a little bit more. You know, he's had some moments in these games where defensively I thought he was fine. You know, like he's stuck with a guy, challenged a shot, whatever. But if he's going to stay in the game largely as just a guy that can shoot, he's going to have to be freaking deadly, because guys like that can be really easy to play off the court. Like, for example, Duncan Robinson in I believe it was either 2020 or 2021, that playoff run, he was starting to show utility because he was actually putting the ball on the floor. Last season, he was, for whatever reason, not doing it anymore, and he fell out of the rotation because it was just,
he wasn't shooting 47%. Like, a guy like that, 38 or 37, 36 isn't terrible by NBA standards, but it's not. It's too easy
to attack all the other stuff. This year, he started doing a little bit more. He became a more useful player.
The reason I find it so interesting is because part of the problem of evaluating players in Summer League, particularly guys who are rookies, second-year players, young guys, is so many of them are put in positions that they will not be in the regular season, especially when we talk about a good team. A lousy lottery team. Yeah, a guy who's a big scorer in the Summer League could also get 15 shots a game with the, in the regular season, but that's not going to happen with the Lakers. And so, you want to see kind of like the scope of like, is this something that he would be doing? And that's what makes Christie interesting too, is like how much of what he'd be doing is something he'd be doing in the regular season, defending, the three-point shooting is something obviously that will help him stay on the floor. But I do think Christie actually is a guy that they would, if he's going to play and he's playing well, like would be able to take not a high usage, but like he'd get shots. He'd be allowed to put the ball on the floor and try to attack the basket and stuff like that.
It was low usage, but Christie made 3-pointers last season. His 3-point percentage was good. It just, again, extremely small sample size.
Yeah, I just, you understand what I'm saying? Like, would he be allowed to be a guy who isn't just there to spot up and take threes, but could also play a role in the offense where he takes the ball to the floor? Like, he gets a few more shots.
I think it's possible, and the reason is because if he's out there in a bench unit with Gabe Vincent, like Gabe Vincent is not a particularly dynamic playmaker. He's much more of like that 3-and-D point guard that LeBron has often flourished with, but he's not somebody that you necessarily look to run sets as the primary guy. So there could be opportunities there. And then when you think about some of the other guys that could be playing off the bench, Taurean Prince, maybe Rui Hachimura if they wanted to have that type of
Jared Vanderbilt, whatever.
Jared Vanderbilt, sure. Like There's nobody that stand in. LeBron could be out there with some of those guys. D'Angelo Russell could be out there. Austin Reeves,
all that, sure.
But there's nobody that is earmarked, at least right now, for the second unit that you feel like, okay, that's the guy that's going to be primarily handling the ball if it's not one of the starters playing.
Right, or the guy we look at it, who you always say with bench units, where are the points going to come from? It would be interesting to see, like, as we get closer to the preseason, if they test out Christie in a bit. I'm not talking primary bench score. That's too much to again, 20 years old. But
plus they have other guys who should be doing it.
Correct. No question. But like, is that a role that they would let him try on in the preseason for a few minutes, and see? That's what I love about this time of year, is trying to picture how a player like that, who has a great game in the Summer League, can adapt to what the context of the regular season is going to look like, not just in better competition, which obviously matters, but also their role. Did not get to the thing about the Lakers being drama free, but Andy, the good news is they will be drama free again on Friday, which is part of the charm. So we'll talk about that related to all the big news going on in the NBA and how nice it is for the Lakers to not be involved in any of it. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to see the show, hang out with well over 19,000 subscribers to the channel. Want to see your questions and comments. Ask us all that stuff. Help us get through the summer, mailbag style. And we will see everybody on Friday.